Hi, it's Katie Bowl, and I'm here with Katie Stories number 31. What do you think of this background? It's real. Like, this is the property that my husband and I love. And we come walk here and we stand here and plan our property. It's beautiful. It has this view. If you look beyond, down the valley, a lake, all the suburbs, and then the ocean and the mountains of the lower mainland and seashell beyond. It's just stunning. And it's interesting, we were walking here a few weeks ago, and as we started to leave the property and walk along the side of it, I was saying to him, with the law of attraction, as you start to manifest things, you start by talking about what you would actually do, right? Like, we should go home and start laying out plans on paper for fun, like, how we would maximize the view with the bedrooms and the living room and a big deck in front. And as I was saying those exact words, and my husband's nodding, this big eagle comes flying like about 6 feet, 8 feet in the air, right past us. It was pretty divine. And today I was going to do my story out in the yard, and my husband was mowing the lawn and weed eating, making lots of noise. And then when he was finally finished, the neighbors were. It's like an all-day bourbon lawnmower weed eating fest. So I came here, and other than the Harleys ripping down the road, which is pretty cool, it's not too bad, and we get to hear the sound of birdies. So man, that's really cool, because when I showed up here to set up, I'm just opening up my chair, and a big eagle, he wasn't bald, but this beautiful eagle, come flying around and flew in circles. I just stood here saying hi. So I think he wants us to have this property, or maybe he just was really happy I was doing my Katie story here. So I wanted to tell you about a new earth, because in my last story, I think that was number 29, before I did sort of my intro to update my YouTube channel, I was saying how a friend had noticed my feelings being hurt over something, and she recommended she said, have you heard of Eckhart Tolle? And I said, well, yeah, I read A Power of Now. That was amazing. And that's just the power of watching your thoughts, right? Being the watcher of those thoughts, and the power of now, of not being, when then, I'll be happy when I have this, or when I'm doing this. That you're happy right now. That this now is actually all you ever have. And so that book's very powerful. And if you haven't ever had the chance to read it, it'll never get old. It's just great. And then The New Earth is incredible. So Oprah's a huge fan, and I actually meant to bring her book, What I Know for Sure, and I forgot it. So I'm sorry. It was only a small passage anyway. And really, she's just saying that a new earth had a profound effect on her life. And she devotes a chapter of what I know. The ego loves to identify with the pain body. And the pain body needs the ego to keep renewing itself through. So the book by Eckhart Tolle is going to teach you about recognizing those moments, being aware of them, and how to create space around your thoughts. And how to take the seriousness out of everything, right? It's where you can actually laugh at your own thoughts, because they're so insane. We have an incessant stream always running, but the good news is you can cut in there. And the more you keep cutting in with awareness, you create gaps, mind gaps, and space around those thoughts. And with that, you give yourself self-love. And with that, you're not judging others. You're not being so hard on them when you're not being so hard on you. And the great thing about the not reacting to things is that you're just aware of certain triggers and traumas in you, and you're not going to go there. You're going to really hold your own energy and hold space for other people when they're having their moments, rather than getting sucked into it or drawing in to their stuff. So I really highly recommend that you pick up a copy of this book. I'm going to show you. It came out in 2008, so I see a ton of these in thrift stores, once we get back to life and there's yard sales and things. I'm sure there'll be a lot, because I think everybody's been decluttering. You'll probably be able to pick one of these up. It is for everyone, whether you're just beginning in spirituality, if you're suffering and you're looking to shift your consciousness with the power of awesome positive words and truth, or whether you're in the middle of the journey like I am, you've got more to learn. Well, we all have more to learn, unless you're the Dalai Lama. Oprah, if you're high up like that and you're teaching, I would be really amazed if you hadn't read this book. But if you haven't, put it on your list and make time for it. So I want to read you a little story before we run out of time. This is kind of funny, because I think Eckhart was just sort of a little troublemaker. A woman in her 30s came to see me. As she greeted me, I could sense the pain behind her polite and superficial smile. She started telling me her story, and within 1 second, her smile changed into a grimace of pain. Then she began to sob uncontrollably. She said she felt lonely and unfulfilled. There was much anger and sadness. As a child, she'd been abused by a physically violent father. I saw quickly that her pain was not caused by her present life circumstances, but by an extraordinarily heavy pain body. Her pain body had become the filter through which she viewed her life situation. She was not able to yet see the link between her emotional pain and her thoughts, being completely identified with both. She could not see that she was feeding the pain body with her thoughts. In other words, she lived with the burden of a deeply unhappy self. At some level, however, she must have realized that her pain originated within herself, that she was a burden to herself. She was ready to awaken, and this is why she had come. Right? Because we get tired of our own suffering, our own shit, and that's when it's time. So this is great if you are at home and suffering right now, because it is time. It's time to be with that. Because really good things are coming when you start tapping into that. Okay, I'm going to carry on. I directed the focus of her attention to what she was feeling inside her body and asked her to sense the emotion directly, instead of through the filter of her unhappy thoughts or unhappy story. She said she'd come expecting me to show her the way out of her unhappiness, not into it. Reluctantly, however, she did what I asked her to do. Tears were rolling down her face. Her whole body was shaking. At this moment, this is what you feel, I said. There's nothing you can do about the fact at this moment. This is what you feel. Now, instead of wanting this moment to be different from the way it is it possible for you to completely accept that this is what you feel right now? She was quiet for a moment. Suddenly, she looked impatient, as if she was about to get up, and said angrily, "No, I don't want to accept this." "Who's speaking?" I asked her. "You or the unhappiness in you? Can you see that your unhappiness is about being unhappy, is just another layer of unhappiness?" She became quiet again. "I'm not asking you to do anything. All I'm asking is that you find out whether it's possible for you to allow those feelings to be there. In other words, this may sound strange, if you don't mind being unhappy, what happens to the unhappiness? Don't you want to find out?" She looked puzzled briefly, and after a minute or so of sitting silently, I suddenly noticed a significant shift in her energy field. She said, "This is weird. I'm still unhappy, but now there's a space around it. It seems to matter less." This was the first time I'd heard somebody put it like that. There is space around my unhappiness. That space, of course, comes when there is inner acceptance of whatever you are experiencing in the present moment. I didn't say much else, allowing her to be with the experience. Later, she came to understand that the moment she stopped identifying with the feeling, the old painful emotion that lived in her, the moment she put her attention on it directly, without trying to resist it, it could no longer control her thinking, and so become mixed up with a mentally constructed story called the unhappy me. Another dimension had come into her life that transcended her personal past, the dimension of presence. Since you cannot be unhappy without an unhappy story, this was the end of her unhappiness. It was also the beginning of the end of her pain body. Emotion in itself is not unhappiness. Only emotion plus an unhappy story is unhappiness. When our session came to an end, it was fulfilling to know I had just witnessed the arising of presence in another human being. The very reason for our existence in human form is to bring that dimension of consciousness into this world. I had also witnessed a diminishment of the pain body, not through fighting it, but through bringing the light of consciousness to it. A few minutes after my visitor left, a friend arrived to drop something off. As soon as she came into the room, she said, "What happened here? The energy feels heavy and murky. It almost makes me feel sick. You need to open the windows, burn some incense." I'm thinking smudge. I explained that I had just witnessed a major release in someone with a very dense pain body, and that what she felt must be some of the energy being released during our session. My friend, however, didn't want to stay and listen. She wanted to get away as soon as possible. I opened the windows and went to have dinner at a small Indian restaurant nearby. What happened there was a clear, further confirmation of what I already knew, that on some level, all seemingly individual human pain bodies are connected. Although the form this particular confirmation took did come as a shock, and this is where he's a troublemaker. And this is a wild story. The return of the pain body. I sat down at a table and ordered a meal. There were a few other guests. At a nearby table, there was a middle-aged man in a wheelchair who was just finishing his meal. He glanced at me once, briefly but intensely. A few minutes passed. Suddenly he became restless, agitated. His body began twitching. The waiter came to take his plate. The man started arguing with him. "This food was no good. It was dreadful." "Then why did you eat it?" asked the waiter. And that really set him off. He started shouting, became abusive. Vile words were coming out of his mouth. Intense, violent hatred filled the room. One could feel that energy entering the cells of one's body looking for something to latch onto. Because that's his pain body looking for one, okay? Now he's shouting at the other guests too, but for some strange reason, ignoring me completely. Eckhart, not me. As I sat in intense presence, I suspected that the universal human pain body had come back to tell me, "You thought you were defeated. Look, I'm still here." I also considered the possibility that the released energy field behind after our session followed me to the restaurant and attached itself to one person in whom it found a compatible vibrational frequency, that is to say, a heavy pain body. The manager opened the door. Just leave. The man zoomed out in his electric wheelchair, leaving everyone stunned. 1 minute later, he returned. His pain body wasn't finished yet. It needed more. He pushed open the door with his wheelchair, shouting obscenities. A waitress tried to stop him from coming in. He put his chair in fast forward and pinned her against the wall. Other guests jumped up and tried to pull him away, shouting, screaming, pandemonium. A little later, a policeman arrived, and the man became quiet, was asked to leave and not return. The waitress, fortunately, was not hurt, except for bruises on her legs. When it was all over, the manager came to my table and asked me, half jokingly, but perhaps feeling intuitively that there was some connection, "Did you cause all this?" Imagine that sweet, spiritual man spreading love and awakening throughout the world, causing all that. But it's interesting, right? Like that did follow him. I absolutely could see that. And that's a pretty big example. So to end with that, I know after reading that book, I started to see the chiropractor less because I was in my head less. So I was breathing more, not holding tension in my body, which was making me tight. And you know, when you are feeling uptight, stand upright. Not feeling fine, align. There's a lot to just your posture, taking some amazing deep breaths and straightening up. And so, you know, this book will really teach you how to disentangle from all of that energy that's trapping you, because it's just your own thoughts, your own emotions, your ego, your pain body. So next week, I'm really excited because a good friend of mine has written a book, and her journey is crazy. She's been through so much and didn't always have that love that kept me going, although my family was tumultuous and turbulent. There was a lot of love and humor. She didn't have all that, so I'm pretty always wowed by who she is. She's so smart and amazing. And she's putting out a book, so I want to promote her, but I also want to talk about going to see her around 2014 for some hypnotherapy. And that started to change again profoundly the way that I handled things with boundaries. I learned a lot about boundaries with her. I did hypnotherapy. I started doing jazzercise. I met a great group of women that I just loved and still love. And did nutritional and even did some weight training with her. So it was great, and I'm going to tell you all about that next week. So thank you so much. I hope you have a great week ahead. Bye. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe or give me a thumbs up if you have a chance.